Hello, my name is Melissa Iverson and this is my Pecha Kucha for my research paper. My research is titled, Are Young Adults Being Exposed to Enough Queer Literature? A Study on the Accessibility and Borrowing Rates of Queer YA Graphic Novels in Libraries across the Greater Vancouver area. Having accessible queer literature for young people should be a necessity in most libraries, but is it? To answer this question, I conducted a study comparing the accessibility to the borrowing rates of queer YA graphic novels in 6 public libraries in the Vancouver area. Since queer is such a wide term, we must first define what queer means. The Oxford English Dictionary defines queer as of a person having a sexual or gender identity that does not correspond to or that challenges traditional ideas of sexuality and gender. Also of relating to or associated with such peoples or identities, concerned with such peoples or identities. Before conducting my research, I first had to come up with my hypothesis. I believe that there would be many queer YA graphic novels available in the libraries, but that the borrowing rates would be low, or in other words, that there would not be very many queer YA graphic novels being taken out. As I mentioned earlier, I examined 6 libraries. These libraries were the North Vancouver City Library, Surrey Libraries, Burnaby Public Library, West Vancouver Memorial Library, the Vancouver Public Library, and Richmond Public Library. The first step of my research involved using the library catalogs and search engines. All 6 of the libraries had a very similar website format, which were fairly easy to navigate. I searched using 2 prompts, which were LGBTQ YA graphic novel and queer YA graphic novel, to see how many titles would come up. I also used the prompt YA graphic novel to act as a control group to see how queer title borrowing rates compare with non-queer title borrowing rates. While searching, I discovered that there is overlap between queer YA graphic novels and YA graphic novels in the library collections in the search catalog. Subtracting the queer YA graphic novels from the YA graphic novels makes the total number of YA graphic novels smaller by around 20 to 30%. This means that the accessibility of queer YA graphic novels across the libraries is fairly substantial in terms of the number of titles. My research also involved emailing all 6 libraries asking if I could potentially ask questions for my research essay. The questions were fairly simple and involved asking about popular titles, borrowing rates, and whether ebooks or printed books were more popular. Unfortunately, only one library was able to answer my questions, and that was Richmond Public Library. Despite my interview process being unsuccessful, I found researching the library catalog to be very informative in terms of which books were available, have holds, how many holds they had, and thus finding out which books were popular. During my research, I found that the library with the largest collection of queer YA graphic novels based on the catalog search is Surrey Libraries, and the library with the smallest collection is the Richmond Public Library. I also found that ebooks are more popular than physical books based on which were available and had the most holds. With the rise in popularity of ebooks, this was not a total surprise. In my findings, I also discovered that there are significantly more options for ebooks and printed books compared to audiobooks. The most popular title across every library based on the number of copies and borrowing rates was Heartstopper. Other than that series, most queer YA graphic novels were available, and those that were not available had few holds. If a less popular title was taken out, the majority of the time it had 0 holds. The second most popular books across these locations are The Magic Fish and The Prince and the Dressmaker. The third most popular books varies across library locations, but some of these titles include Nimona, Bloom, Spinning, Mooncakes, Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, and Fun Home. The popular books across these libraries all share similar tropes and character dynamics. Both Heartstopper and The Magic Fish, the 2 most popular borrowed titles in these libraries, follow the stories of cisgender teenage boys and their experience with coming out within family dynamics and other social circles, meaning that most of the popular books focus on gay male relationships. Across all 6 libraries examined in this study, there was a similar pattern in that a lot of books were available, but not a lot were being taken out, which aligns with my hypothesis. This was also seen in the search of the control group because there were a lot of titles that were not taken out and did not have any holds. The biggest difficulty I faced while researching was reaching out to the libraries. As mentioned earlier, only 1 out of the total 6 libraries got back to me. I did get responses from some of the other libraries, but they were unable to answer my questions. I honestly expected at least 2 libraries to answer, so I am a little bit disappointed with the results I got. Overall, I am pleased to see that the queer YA graphic novels across these libraries are being borrowed and that there's a fairly large number of queer titles in the YA graphic novel selection, but borrowing rates of queer YA graphic novels could be much higher. To further my research, an interesting question to consider would be how libraries might increase their borrowing rates. Some ways to increase popularity and accessibility in these libraries include having an accommodating staff, providing education for patrons, and containing a diverse selection of queer YA books that are advertised on the library homepage and within the actual library. That concludes my Pecha Kucha. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video and learned something about the accessibility and borrowing rates of queer YA graphic novels in public libraries in the Greater Vancouver area.